Hey guys, my name is Dan, and it looks like I'm your discussion leader this week. I am currently filming at my desk in my house because, well, this is where I do my homework. Today I will be talking to you about the podcast about planning the perfect death. The first reason why I chose this podcast for my video was the title just grabbed my attention. First of all, planning your own death. And the second reason was I just wanted to know why and how someone would do that. From what I gathered, the main focus about this episode of the podcast is to just begin the conversation and allowing people to talk about it, about incurable diseases that are about the people with incurable diseases that are in constant pain to have the option to plan their own death. It's crazy, right? This is the first time I've ever heard something like this, but after listening to this podcast, I do understand why someone would consider doing this. It could be as simple as just they can't stand the constant pain, and personally, it's still very difficult for myself doing something like this, even if I am in constant pain. I do know that being a healthy person makes it more difficult to consider it as an option since I don't really have a reason to make me want to plan my own death. I still think that if I was in the situation, I would still fight through the pain in hopes that a cure is found. But that's just me. In the podcast, they mentioned something very interesting to me. They talked about a living wake. Basically, a living wake is when you have a wake for a person who's going to die, but instead of them already being dead, the person's alive and attends their own wake. In this case, in the podcast, John Shields attended his own wake, but he had it be more of a celebration. And it really baffles me how someone can be so calm and even like cracking some jokes when death is like less than 24 hours away. He does explain it to be very free and gives him like a lot of freedom, and he feels like he's getting like, I don't know, he just feels more free. I had so many mixed emotions about this podcast, especially when John's loved ones were talking about his death, specifically his wife. Internally, I went back and forth from, oh, I'm glad that he's getting what he wants and will finally be free, to feeling lots of sorrow for his family and how they are all so sad and they all know exactly when it's going to happen. It seems like just a lot to process. John lived in Canada where assisted suicide is legal. And according to the podcast, they must answer questions to see if they qualify to plan their own death. But what about the US? Currently in the US, Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Vermont, and the District of Columbia legalized assisted suicide, as well as Montana, but only under a court ruling. Which brings me to my question. Do you think that assisted suicide for those who qualify should be legal in all of the US? And if so, could you see yourself considering this option in the future if you qualified? Think about that.